Hello and welcome to Boom News. We have with us Julie Woods-Moss, Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer at Tata Communications. Julie, earlier in the session today, you said that it's not necessary that only Chief Digital Officers should be thinking digital and innovation. You're challenging that view. Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, every functional head should have a data strategy and a digital strategy. And you can almost say it's a cost of failure that we need to put in, a separate function. So whether it's Chief Data Officer, Chief Digital Officer, it really should be an enabler of the business, but every business head should own their own strategy for digital and data. And I think I shared some data from Gartner that 90% of all companies will have both of these CDOs within 2 years. And you could almost argue, well, should they evolve and become, more of a facilitator rather than actually driving the strategy? Because it should be, as intuitive and as organic as having a HR strategy. Right.
And do you think there are a lot of conflicts because of this? Because you also said that if companies need to work together, then they need to keep their egos out at the door. So what happens when everyone is thinking digital, or as compared to the earlier times when it was too much compartmentalized?
Well, most big companies have thrived through very rigid silos, right. And what digital's forcing is this collaboration, and that has to be based on having trust in the culture. And I think I use the example, if you're talking about customer service, who leads that? Is it the head of customer revenue? Is it the customer service head? Or is it the CMO? And it shouldn't really matter. You should you should have a roadmap, you should have a business objective, right. And you should all mobilize behind that. And it's not about whose name's on the tin. Right. It really is about what outcomes are the three of you creating. But what it does mean is often our CEO will ask 3 people to do the same thing. So if we're not internally highly networked, we can double up, and that's a waste of shareholder and personal time. So it's forcing a level of collaboration that never was required before.
Right. And what are the fundamental changes you're seeing as far as decision making on tech? What are the changes that you're seeing? How are companies adapting to that, and what are the changes that are happening?
Well, the biggest change is clearly with cloud. Whether you're CMO, Chief HR Officer, running a geography, that there are fast ways to get to market, and they may require you onboarding new services. And so the CIO has to be more ahead of the business, making it easier for the business heads to be able to choose as a service choices, but still the CIO needs to make sure that the customer experience is flawless, that it's secure, that data regulatory policies are in place, right. As well as providing that agility that they can experiment. So I think from my perspective, it's the CIOs. I think I mentioned that now 50% of CIOs work directly for the CEO. I don't think that's by accident. I think the good strategic CIOs are really a critical cohort to the CEO, because they enable the business to go faster.
Right. And as far as technology is concerned, I also read about smartphones driving rural changes, and social innovation. Also read that you all had a pilot project where you all were using religious places as hubs to drive internet in rural areas of India. How is that pilot shaped up? Can you share some details on that?
Yeah, sure. Within Tata Communications, we have a program called Shape the Future, and we run an incubator. And the incubators work to lean gates, so they get sprints, they get budgets. So when they come into the program, they get $500,000 and they have to do certain sprints. And so this program is in sprint 3. We've got pilots underway. The technology is not the issue. It's really about mobilizing the ecosystem. Often the things we do are not disruptive. We really are shaping new ecosystems. Digital inclusion is such a critical role for society and for the economy that's one of the the projects we have, but we have others.
And some time back we saw Facebook trying to do something similar, and there was a huge backlash. So what lessons do you think probably companies can take from these kind of changes that probably not everyone is very keen to implement because of certain privacy issues, and probably one company getting an entire hold over the entire rural market? What are the what are the lessons that you think that companies can take from that?
Well, you've got to be customer centric. That's the first thing. And if you are looking at if you are going to make commercial gains, you have to be transparent about that. In the case of digital inclusion, we believe we can cost effectively get to the next 100 million of adjacent rural communities. But when you get into the next 200-300 million, we've not found a technology that would allow us to do that, to cost in, and I don't believe the government has either. So I think you've just got to be transparent and say we can provide this service and we can make it work commercially for us. You all benefit, whether that's through the mosques or through other access means, and it's all about transparency.
Any other illustration that you can give apart from the mosques and the temples that you plan to use? Anything that Tata Communications is doing to drive social change through technology?
Well, I think the Internet of Things is a fantastic platform because we saw the adoption of mobile. Everybody is saying that will completely be dwarfed by the adoption of Internet of Things. So we were one of the first movers globally, and here in India. We'll have a LoRa IoT platform. Right. It's already in 4 major metropoles, and by the end of this year it'll be in 60 cities. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you want to get ubiquitous networking for your thing so it just works, then you can just tap into our platform, our kit, and we're working already with about 50 brands here. And they're not all the big brands. There's a lot of new startups, so I think that's a big wave of GDP growth, which brings with it employment and value creation for India.
Yeah, and one final question, as far as digital is concerned, there's a lot of talk about going digital in India. What are the key challenges that you see? A lot has been talked about the opportunities as far as India going digital. What are the key challenges that probably would prevent India from rising too fast in that?
I don't think it's so much about rising fast. I think there is more opportunity than challenge here. Clearly, the scale of the geography and the number of urban dwellings that are relatively small here, but so the move to the big urban dwellings that happened in China didn't happen in quite the same way in India. So you have to, as I said, beyond the current metropoles, beyond the next 100 million, getting true digital inclusion there is still, a technical challenge. You can talk about Google's loons, right. You can, talk about drones, but they're not scalable yet. Right. So I think it's vital that we don't leave people behind on this journey. The internet is as much of a right as clean water, right. In terms of being connected to the rest of the world and being given equal opportunities.
Right. But isn't that the challenge that probably all tech companies are mining the same urban audience rather than expanding and coming out with more innovations to go and look rural?
I speak for Tata Communications. We balance it. Often you get the best innovation by being at the edge. So, for example, one of the businesses I'm incubating at the minute is highly disruptive to our core business. Right. It's a new IP-based technology. We're going to be launching it at Mobile World Congress, and it allows software networks, to be spun out in 30 minutes for a variety of use cases at fractional price points. So sometimes when you're operating at the edge, it actually forces innovation. Right. If you think in your life, when have you learnt most? It's been in the most extreme cases. Right. So we see those edges as being where you operate, and then you bring it back to the core.
Right. Julie, thank you for speaking to Boom News.
Welcome. Thank you.